There's something everyone should know about the US Open, and that is that the men and the women don't use the same tennis balls. This is starting to get more publicity, but I want to talk about this and dig into it because if you're able to kind of understand what the effects of this are, Emma Raducanu and Leylah Fernandez meeting in the final last year, Raducanu ultimately winning, makes a little more sense. Now, that is never going to make sense. That is one of the most unlikely events in the history of sports, in my opinion, but it makes a little more sense. So let's get the facts straight as Iga Swiatek has talked about the balls now. Ash Barty's coach, Craig Tyser, talked about the balls last year. Let's just first establish what they're talking about. U.S. Open uses Wilson U.S. Open tennis balls like this. Now, next to where it says Wilson U.S. Open, you see the letters XD. That stands for extra duty. The women also use Wilson U.S. Open tennis balls, but I'm going to change it to the balls they use. They're both the same price on Tennis Warehouse. No XD, which means they are regular duty. So all ball manufacturers have this. I don't have any Wilson balls. I like Dunlop. I like extra duty, XD. That's what I buy. The difference between regular duty and extra duty is the amount of felt on the ball. Ball manufacturers generally say if you play on hard court, buy extra duty because they're very durable and they will last long on those rough and tough hard courts. If you play on clay, you probably don't want to be playing with extra duty because all that extra felt around the outside of the ball is going to be perfect for the clay to clump up in and make the ball so incredibly heavy that it's not going to be a lot of fun to play with, and there's going to be a lot of clay there. That's generally what ball manufacturers say, but in the case of the U.S. Open, for many years, I don't know how far back this goes, but it is not a new thing. The U.S. Open has decided that the women should play with regular duty balls and the men should play with extra duty balls. That is because the effect of extra felt obviously has extra weight. It puts extra weight on the ball, and the heavier the ball is, the slower the ball travels through the air, the less aerodynamic it is. And I'm not a physicist, so I'm not sure if the actual weight itself has anything to do with it. It might just be the aerodynamicism, which I know is a factor. I know that for a fact. I'm not sure if the weight actually plays in. However, the U.S. Open has maintained that because the women hit with a little bit less racket speed and power, that they can actually speed up the women's game a little bit by using just the regular duty Wilson ball, while the men who deliver so much power should play with the extra duty ball to have the opposite effect, to slow things down. That has been what the U.S. Open has done for years and years and years. Some players are going to like that. Some players are not. And the first time this definitely, that I can remember, it definitely going into the mainstream is when Ash Barty's coach, Craig Tyser, said that Ash would never win the U.S. Open, or that he doesn't see her winning the U.S. Open because the tennis balls are too light. And at the time, that was a little bit crazy. How could you say that Ash Barty can't win the U.S. Open just because of that small detail, like the tennis ball is a little too light? Iga Swiatek was asked about this a couple days ago in Cincinnati. And by the way, Cincinnati has the same setup, same as the U.S. Open, which is a recent change because Cincinnati actually used to be played with pen tennis balls, and that wasn't good for the players trying to warm up for the U.S. Open. You should have the same balls. So I'm very happy that they switched that, and Cincinnati now uses Wilson. So Iga was asked about this, and I want to read her answer. The question was, what do you think about the U.S. Open balls? Do you like them? Iga said, oh my God, well, honestly, I don't like them. Well, I've heard so many players actually complaining as well. Women players, because we have different balls than men. I know it sounds weird, But basically, the thing is that they are lighter. They fly like crazy. You know, we have really powerful games right now. It's not like 10 years ago, except Serena. Girls, I think, played slower, right? Right now, we play very powerful, and we kind of can't loosen up our hands with these balls. I know that there are many players who complain, and many of them are top 10. We make more mistakes for sure. I don't think if that's like really nice to watch visually. I don't know why they are different than men's ones. I don't know, like 15 years ago, probably women had some elbow injuries because the balls were heavier and they changed them to women's balls. But right now we are so physically well prepared that I don't think it would happen. Plus, she says that she can't get these balls in Europe, so she can't practice with them. That is obviously a very interesting sub note. And she said that this situation is pretty hard in terms of injuries because we are stringing our rackets more and more tight. And this is really confusing for our arms and our hands and for our touch. So, and then she mentions that Ash didn't like them either, which is documented. The thing about Ash Barty and Iga Swiatek that's so interesting is they share one thing in common. They have the biggest, baddest, heaviest topspin forehands in all of women's tennis. And they do not need any help from the tennis ball to hit their forehands heavy, to hit them hard. And Iga would rather a heavier ball that she feels like she can control and swing as hard as she can at without fearing that it's just going to fly like crazy. She said that she can't loosen up her hands. It's so interesting that Ash and Iga, the two best forehands in the women's game, I guess Ash, I need to use past tense, are the main players speaking out against these tennis balls. And then you look on the other side and you go back full circle. You think, well, who's actually playing well with these balls? If Iga hates it, if Ash hates it, who does it help? And you think about last year's U.S. Open final. And again, it's never going to make sense. It's never going to make sense that Emma Raducanu, in what, her third or fourth ever professional main draw at the tour level, won the U.S. Open, came through qualifying, didn't drop a set. That's never going to make any sense. But watching Emma after the U.S. Open play a full year now, it's been very apparent what her biggest issue is. She's underpowered. She struggles at this stage in her career to hit winners and force errors from behind the baseline because of her ground stroke speed. She just doesn't have that much power. Suddenly she goes to Cincinnati and she looks great. And the other day, I actually pulled up the highlights to watch her run at the U.S. Open because I said, okay, I've been watching Emma for a year now. I want to see how did it look different in New York last year. And the difference was clear and obvious. She had offensive potency. She wasn't just a grinder. She wasn't just consistent. She didn't just have great movement. She could actually hit forehand winners down the line and backhand winners down the line. And she was doing that off the ground in rallies. And then you look at the finalist, Leylah Fernandez, another player who she lacks a little bit of power, but she has great movement. She takes the ball early and she redirects down the line. But wouldn't it be such a help for her to get the extra ball speed? Because control is not an issue for Leylah, power is. So the ball provides the power, the ball creates the speed, and suddenly you have Fernandez and Raducanu, two players with so many wonderful talents and skills, but a bit of a power deficit. They go to the U.S. Open, and that power deficit is no longer an issue. You have to point to the regular duty balls versus the extra duty balls and the lightweight qualities that the women's U.S. Open balls are. So as you watch and as you consider the U.S. Open, keep this in mind. I think this is something that every tennis fan should be well aware of. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.